So the 2025 MLB trade deadline is in the books, and that was probably the best trade deadline that we have seen since 2021, and probably one of the best trade deadlines that we have seen this century. We saw Carlos Correa, Mason Miller, a top 5 prospect, get traded. Yeah, we are going to look at some of the trade deadline grades here from ESPN, basically grading every single move from the 2025 deadline. We had one happen late where Merrill Kelly got traded from the Arizona Diamondbacks to the Texas Rangers, and they ended up getting Cole Drake, Mitch Bratt, and David Hageman. So we actually saw the Diamondbacks kind of sell every piece. They traded Jordan Montgomery, traded Randall Grichuk, they traded away Gino Suarez, they traded away Merrill Kelly, Shelby Miller got traded like past 6 o'clock. They traded basically everybody but Zach Gallen, as they should have. They had so many expiring contracts. They moved Josh Naylor a week ago to the Seattle Mariners. That kind of kickstarted the 2025 deadline. ESPN gives the Rangers a B-. Honestly, I kind of like this a little bit more. Like, you do have Merrill Kelly, who's super reliable and has proven to pitch well in the postseason. Last time he pitched in the postseason was them in the World Series against the Texas Rangers. They also have Jacob deGrom at the top, Nathan Eovaldi. I kind of like what the Rangers have. They could have worked on the bullpen maybe a tad bit more. They just kind of need their bats to show up in the second half between like Langford and Jung and Adolis Garcia and kind of those guys moving forward. So they're giving the Rangers a B-. They're going to give the Diamondbacks a B+. But I do think the Diamondbacks did a good job, and Mike Hazen did a good job selling here at the deadline. For the Mets, they're going to get a B for Cedric Mullins. I also don't mind this for the Mets either. I mean, Tyrone Taylor has been such a negative in center field. Well, not as a defender, but more so as a bat. His OPS is not great right now, so I wonder if the corresponding move will be him getting DFA'd, because the Mets will get some guys back healthy. They may get Jose Siri back this year. We'll see. Jesse Winker, who's not really a fielder anymore, but you already have your primary designated hitter in Starling Marte. So you get Cedric Mullins. The Orioles get Anthony Nunez, Raymond Gomez, and Chandler Marsh. And it felt like the Mets, really weren't going to have to give up too much for Cedric Mullins, who's actually been, I think, underrated as a defender. I know he doesn't grade out too well, but he's got at least a 700 OPS. He's been an all-star in the past. And if he's not great for the Mets, he could end up becoming somebody that doesn't make the playoff roster, and they're going to give the Orioles a C+ for this grade. This was a shocking one. When the Rays basically got Griffin Jax at like 6 o'clock, and we didn't know who the return was, and it ended up being Taj Bradley, who was sent down not too long ago. I had no idea really what the Rays were doing this year at the trade deadline, because they traded away Danny Jansen, they got Griffin Jax. I don't know with the Rays right now. I really don't know. They traded away Zach Littell. Why? He's actually been kind of solid this year when they want to push him late in games. They traded Jose Caballero to a division rival. The Twins traded everybody. Like, what were the Twins doing? They may win 50, 60 games next year. It's just Byron Buxton, Joe Ryan, and Pablo Lopez. It's like the veterans on the team next year. We'll talk about them a lot. They're going to give the Rays a C. I mean, I'd rather have the starting pitcher with control than the reliever, although Griffin Jax has proven a lot more than Bradley, who's been inconsistent and has had his injuries. But I don't know. I don't know, man. Like, it's tough. Like, the Twins rotation will be interesting with, like, Mick Abel, Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, who didn't get traded, and Taj Bradley if they don't make another trade. Now, their bullpen needs some work after trading Kalum. You traded away Johan Duran and Griffin Jax and a lot of guys. They traded away Willie Castro and obviously Carlos Correa. ESPN likes this a little bit better for the Twins. Obviously, there's still some upside in Taj Bradley if he can put it all together. This was a crazy trade from the Boston Red Sox. The main guy they got back in the Rafi Devers trade was the Giants' first-round pick in 2024. And I know Hicks was in the trade. I know Kyle Harrison was in the trade. But they got James Tibbs to trade him for Dustin May. I don't know. I know May has a little bit of control left, but he has not put together a healthy season in a while. Now, he's been healthy this year for the Dodgers, but still, and I know they needed a starter, and maybe, I don't know, would the the Twins not have done like James Tibbs and somebody else for Joe Ryan? I thought that could have been interesting. So the Dodgers get James Tibbs, a rare like selling trade by the Dodgers, and ESPN does like this. A little bit more for the Dodgers, although not great. So he has struggled in Double-A. It was just kind of shocking to see Tibbs get moved like that. But maybe they think they could fix something in May's game, and maybe they also think the injuries are behind him. This was like the biggest whoa. It's not like the Twins are not paying too much of Correa's contract, and the Astros get Carlos Correa. Now, Carlos Correa has a lot of money left on the deal. $103 million And there's also some guarantees after that for Matt Mikulski, who is a lower tier prospect from the Astros, who already don't have a great farm system. But Carlos Correa returns home to the Houston Astros, where he won 2 World Series with, where he became an elite shortstop with. I mean, this is so cool. It's like Damian Lillard returning to the Portland Trailblazers in the NBA. But, man, there's some risk to this. Like, Correa, the injury concerns. There's a reason why the Mets, Giants didn't sign him. He had a productive year, last year, 2 years ago with the Twins. But he's been banged up this year. He's got a 700 OPS. He's going to play third base for you because Isaac Paredes is out for the year, maybe, with this hamstring injury, which is crazy. And it kind of stinks. But, yeah, this is definitely the biggest, like, whoa trade at the deadline. And, yeah, the Twins kind of just gutted their roster here. They shed a lot of money. Will they spend a lot of money? I don't know. They want to sell the team, it looks like, but are there any buyers for the Minnesota Twins right now? Poor Buxton, man. Nobody is left right now. They like this trade a little bit better for the Astros. We'll see. Maybe this is going to get Correa to return a little bit to his former self now that he's playing with a true winning environment, although the Twins have been competitive at some points over the last few years. But now he gets to go back, play with Jeremy Pena, play with Jose Altuve, obviously, and some of the guys that he got to play with. Why not get Verlander at the deadline? Houston. That would have been pretty cool. So we also had the Padres, the first of like their big trades, but this was like the lower of the two. They get Ryan O'Hearn, a rental all-star first baseman, and Ramon Laureano, who's having a career resurgence. If you remember him back like with the A's, then he got suspended. He's had some bad years, and now he's got a club control for next year with like a $6 million option. The Orioles got 6 prospects, basically, which is insane. So a lot of quantity here, not a lot of quality for Mike Elias and the Baltimore Orioles. They're giving the Padres an A- with this deal. I mean, you got some good complementary bats to Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado now in O'Hearn, who could be your first baseman. You get Laureano. They were looking for an outfield bat. Probably going to be too much to go out and get Kwan after the Miller trade. Probably too expensive for Luis Robert, apparently. And they wanted Jonah Tong from the Mets for Luis Robert, who's still got like a 213 batting average and a sub 700 OPS. I know he's been better as of late. So they like this trade for the Padres. And they also like this trade for the Orioles as well, who were also one of the big sellers. So yeah, you basically had Minnesota. You had, I guess, like So the Minnesota sold a lot, Baltimore sold a lot, and Arizona sold a lot as well. Miami didn't sell as much as we would have thought. Like, I don't believe Bender got moved. Sandy Alcantara didn't get moved. I'm sure Peter Bendix didn't love the offers he was getting. He's going to hope that Sandy can have a stronger second half than he did first half because he's been pitching better as of late, and they can move him in the offseason. Kind of like Jesus Fazzardo last year because he had that injury and wasn't great. Midseason part at times. And then they also didn't trade away Edward Cabrera, who's got some control, so I'm glad they didn't do so. I think the Marlins could be a fun team rest of the season and next year. They did trade away Jesus Sanchez to the Houston Astros, and they got 3 prospects in return. They do like this a little bit more for the Miami Marlins, and it made more sense. Well, it definitely made sense to move Jesus Sanchez, probably more than anybody on that roster. Yankees, man. I think the Yankees had an elite deadline. At least their bullpen is going to be so much fun to watch with. They get Jake Bird, but now you have David Bednar, you have Camilo Duvall, you have Devin Williams, you have Luke Weaver. They probably could have used another starter with all their injuries, but they got some guys coming back. They could have maybe used another bat. They had Caballero, they had Ryan McMahon. It's just like the lineup isn't amazing without Judge. Now, it's not terrible, but we'll see how they look with this Judge injury going on. They do like this trade for the Yankees. Rafael Flores is a good catching prospect. He's raking it and is still a teenager. And the Pirates get a C-. Damn. Yeah, so you have Henry Davis, Andy Rodriguez, Joey Bart. Yeah, there's just so many catchers on this team right now. Damn. So yeah, they do not love this trade for the Pittsburgh Pirates here, who trade David Bednar. At least they were able to get something for him this year. The Yankees also got Jake Bird from the Rockies, as the Rockies should trade off some of these guys. And I'm glad they traded away Ryan McMahon. Probably no point for him to be on the team. Here was the biggest, like, AJ Preller, man. You're a madman. You're a sicko. He trades Leo DeVry, a top 5, pretty much a consensus top 10 prospect in all baseball, who's still a teenager. Braden Nett, Henry Baez, and their 17th ranked prospect. So they traded away their number 1 prospect, number 3, 4, 6, 7, 12, 13, 17, 26, 29, and 3 unranked guys. Well, they traded away Stephen Kolek and Berger, who's debuted with them as well. Crazy deadline from Preller. I would put them in it's a pennant or bust season for them again. Preller is just amazing at drafting and finding guys in the international market and then trading them away at the deadline. They get Mason Miller, who's still got a couple more years of control that they're probably going to put him in the pen. And you got Morin, you got Estrada, you got Suarez. You have like a great bullpen right now. Like, it's elite. It's up there as one of the best in baseball. It's probably up there with the New York Yankees, but man, there's some risk to this. Now, we may never know DeVry being a superstar for another 5 or 6 years, but he has that potential. Miller has a little bit of injury concerns because he's had that in the past, but he's somebody that I think makes a very intriguing starter, and I think that's why you're trading a top 5, top 10 prospect, because you're going to have Miller come out of the pen this year. Maybe you stretch him out a little bit. Probably not, though. Next year, though, they're going to ease him in as a starter for sure, with King and Cease hitting unrestricted free agency. And they also acquired JP Sears, who I know was a lot of teams were interested about fixing JP Sears and what they could do with his years of control left. He went to the A's, I believe, in the Frankie Montas trade with the Yankees a couple years ago. This was a major trade. So they gave the Padres a D+ for this deal, and they gave the A's an A. I know if the A's wanted to trade away Miller, they wanted to get some pitching in return. So they didn't get that, but they do get a consensus top 10 prospect. Like, would the Rangers have traded Sebastian Walcott? No way the Tigers would have traded Kevin McGonigal in this trade. Maybe the Giants would have traded like a Bryce Eldridge, but still kind of insane. They give this an A. Who knows, though? Like, if Miller could become a top 15 starter in the league, then this is a dub for the Padres. We'll see how Sears is going to look in the second half, because now you have like Cease, King, Darvish is healthy again. I just never know what goes on with like Joe Musgrove. Sure is out for the year, right? So, man, there's going to be an interesting Padres team. They also got Nestor Cortez this year at the deadline. Man, it's crazy. And I didn't even mention Jason Adam, who's absolutely electric. Like, this bullpen is insane. And they traded for Adam last year as well. And like that Robbie Snelling. No, that was for Tanner Scott. So the Padres also got Freddie Fermin, who's not much of an upgrade over Elias Diaz. They trade away Bergert and Kolek in that deal as well, which also was a little interesting. The Padres get a B for this one. The Royals are going to get a B+. I thought the Royals did pretty well. Like Bergert and Kolek with a little bit of control on those guys that have shown flashes this year. And they've had injuries to Bubic and Bubic and Reagans and Lorenzen. I thought the Royals were going to sell a little bit more, but they extended Seth Lugo. They kind of bought a little bit too at the deadline, like getting Randall Grichuk and some others, but they traded away Freddie Fermin for some good pitching depth, and that's probably what they need. And maybe they can throw some of those guys in the bullpen. So the Phillies made some notable trades. I think the Phillies also had like an A+ elite deadline. Them and the Mets kind of went back and forth. You get Bader, you get Mullins, you get Yohan Duran, you get Ryan Helsley. The Phillies traded away Hendry Mendez and Jeremy and another right-handed pitching prospect for Harrison Bader, who's had a good year for the Minnesota Twins, and above 740 OPS this season, a good defender in center field, helped the Mets last year, and is probably an upgrade, right, over Brandon Marsh and Yohan Rojas and Max Kepler, who hasn't been great. I wonder if they could have gotten Byron Buxton. Like, would Byron Buxton waive the no trade to go to Philadelphia? Twins get a C, Phillies get a B- for this deal. This was a big trade. The Cy Young winner from 2020, Shane Bieber, who had Tommy John last year, goes to the Blue Jays after having a good rehab outing. The Blue Jays get another frontline starter potentially. We'll see how Bieber looks in the second half, joining Jose Barrios, Max Scherzer, Eric Lauer, and some others over there in Toronto. And then the Guardians and Chris Bassett. And the Guardians get Cal Stephan, a top 10 prospect for them. I kind of like this. I mean, Bieber, hopefully you can convince him to re-sign. I mean, if he thinks, like, he's probably going to opt out of the $16 million. If he gets into a range that you're not comfortable with, that probably means he pitched well for you in the second half and maybe into the playoffs. And for the Guardians, you get a pitcher with obviously years of control. You get a top 10 prospect from the Blue Jays, and the Guardians are a cheap organization, right? They don't really spend, so they were going to go out there and extend Bieber. Now, they didn't move Carlos Santana. Obviously, the Clase threw a wrench because maybe they were going to move Clase, maybe they were going to move Kate Smith. They kind of had to nix that just because of the Clase suspension. Luis Ortiz gets suspended as well. Kwan was going to be the other guy. I wonder if they could have gotten DeVry for Kwan, but Mason Miller is probably a little bit more intriguing as an arm than Kwan is as a bat. But yeah, this was a big trade. Blue Jays get a B+, Guardians get a C+ right now. I didn't really think that Bieber was going to get moved until a couple days ago. The Mariners late last night on the 30th got Eugenio Suarez, the best power bat traded, and probably the best bat in general traded at the deadline for Tyler Locklear, the best prospect, and 2 pitching prospects in return. Honestly, not having to give up like a blue chipper, like a Montas or like an Emerson or obviously like a Young or none of those guys you were going to trade for a rental bat. But still, I thought the Mariners kept all their good prospects and they get just somebody that's hit well in Seattle before, something they need. And now this lineup is getting more exciting, right? With Randy, with Cal Raleigh, who could end up winning AL MVP, Julio Rodriguez, Eugenio Suarez. We got some bats now in the Seattle Mariners lineup, and they're going for the AL West. They're going out there, and it's going to be a fun second half between the Astros and the Mariners. Maybe the Rangers are involved. I guess the Angels want to be involved, right? But I think this was a good trade for the Mariners and a nice prospect get back for the Diamondbacks, who Locklear has a clear path to being their starting first baseman going forward. They let go of Walker last year. Naylor's gone, and they get him back in the Suarez deal. The Mariners get an A for this trade. The Diamondbacks are going to get a C. I mean, I'm glad they traded him. I thought it would have been silly to trade him as well, or to not trade him and then sign him in the offseason given his age. But I think the Diamondbacks can be good next year. You still have Ketel Marte. You still have Corbin Carroll. Perdoma's been playing like an all-star caliber level this year. Maybe Waller comes up. We'll see. But yeah, I don't think they were going to get Cole Young or anybody like that for a rental. Next up, we have Steven Matz for Blaze Jordan. This one happened yesterday as well. Blaze Jordan reunites with Chaim Bloom over there in St. Louis. The Red Sox get Steven Matz, who's been a solid bullpen arm this year for the St. Louis Cardinals. Nothing crazy in this one. The Red Sox have actually had a pretty solid bullpen, so they solidify that even more. And Blaze has actually been kind of good in the minors this year. They're given these C pluses. The Astros got Ramon Urias from the Orioles for a pitching prospect, and they get a nice utility bat there in the infield. With the Paredes injury, it just makes a lot of sense for them to get kind of a stopgap piece there, and the Orioles get a B- for moving him. The Rays trading away like Zach Littell. Like, why are you doing that? I don't know. You can use as many pitching arms as you can. Now, maybe they like something in one of these prospects. The Dodgers got involved as well, but I don't know. They give a C- to the Reds. I kind of liked Littell this year. I've had him in fantasy. Maybe I'm overrating him a little bit too much. Rays get a B- in this deal, and the Dodgers are going to get a B+ for getting involved here. Mike Soroka gets traded to the Cubs. The Cubs didn't get like a Dylan Cease, Merrill Kelly, Zach Gallen big name at the deadline. They get Mike Soroka, who's got better expected numbers so far this year. So maybe with good defense behind him, a winning environment in Chicago, he could be a nice jolt. But I don't know. Is like Shota Imanaga, Matthew Boyd, like that's going to be the top of your rotation come playoff time. And Colin Ray is like your other healthy pitcher. I would have liked that Chicago got somebody else, but they also got Willie Castro at the deadline as well. They like this trade a little bit more for the Washington Nationals. The Mets getting Ryan Helsley for like less than what they gave up for Tyler Rogers was kind of crazy. They trade away Baez, Dome, and another pitching prospect. I like this for the Mets. Helsley's a rental. He probably wants to be a closer, so I doubt the Mets are going to re-sign him at the end of the year. I would say better chance they re-sign Rogers. But now you get like a great setup man. A little bit more volatility than Rogers, I would say. But that's what the Mets had to do after the Phillies got Durant, in my opinion. So I do like this trade for the Mets. And they love this, actually, for the Cardinals. Wow. Okay. Wow, Baez was ranked 5th on ESPN's top 10 prospects. I don't know if I agree with that because I'm taking Tong, Jet, Sproat, definitely Clifford. That's 5, and Benj 6, easy. Maybe like Clifford could be a debate, but still 5. And then the Phillies got Yohan Duran for Eduardo Tate, an intriguing catching prospect, and Mick Abel, who's got years of control. That's shown a little bit of flashes at the MLB level. This was the start of the Twins sell-off. I thought they were going to move Jax or Duran. They moved both of them, which kind of crazy. But like I said before, Abel, Bradley, Lopez, we'll see if he's still going to be there, and Joe Ryan. It's an intriguing starting rotation going forward, and the Phillies get a better upgrade of like Carlos Estevez from last year, much better than like Jordan Romano and their closer by committee this year because of the Alvarado suspension, who unfortunately they won't get in the playoffs. You have Strahm, you have Kirkring, and now you have Yohan Duran, who's got like an electric entrance song as well. Twins get a B. Damn. I know he's got some control, and that's why they gave up a decent amount, but still. So the Mets get a C+ for the Tyler Rogers. When this happened, I was like, whoa, that's a lot. But they get a great reliable arm. It's a rental. Now the Giants get Drew Gilbert, who's got years of control like prospect, but apparently he's got a lower ceiling than people think. Jose Budo, who's yet to really show consistency at the MLB level, years of control, could be a starter, could be a reliever, and Blade Tidwell, who has had a cup of coffee in the MLB, like a spot start here and there, and he has to prove that he is a starter in this league. The Mets gave up a lot, I would say, in this deal. And I do think the Giants made out nicely. Like, I'm not going to cope here as a Mets fan. I thought we gave up a lot when it happened. I thought maybe just like one of these three could have got it done, given the control Budo or the prospect pedigree of Tidwell or Gilbert. But you know what? The Mets are going all in this year. This one definitely has more risk than Helsley. But the Mets do have a good farm system. Austin Slater was traded from the White Sox to the Yankees. One of the best pinch hitters of all time, right? I just don't know how the White Sox didn't trade away Luis Robert. The Reds got Brian Hayes. We'll see how he looks in Great American Ballpark. Can he pull the ball a little bit more? He's got a little bit of money left on the deal. And then Taylor Rogers ended up getting flipped basically again. So both Rogers brothers were moved. Danny Jansen was traded. I still have no idea what the Rays were doing this year at the deadline. I never do, like I said. And then, we saw Chris Paddock get traded earlier on to the Detroit Tigers. Ryan McMahon, you guys kind of know about those ones as well. Alex Call got traded to the LA Dodgers. I don't even know if we talked about that one yet. The Dodgers were a little bit quieter than they usually are this year at the deadline. Mike Yastrzemski got traded as well to the Milwaukee Brewers. Same with Jordan Montgomery. Like, Mike Yastrzemski ended up getting traded to the Kansas City Royals. They were not really sellers whatsoever. They actually bought at the deadline. And yeah, we had kind of like those moves like Charlie Morton to the Tigers after 6 o'clock. It's kind of weird they moved it to 6 o'clock, where it's always been, I feel like, 4 years past. Camilo Duvall, we haven't really talked about. Like, well, it kind of did a little bit, but the Yankees getting Duvall, Bednar, Bird this year at the deadline. Like, the Yankees bullpen is going to be fun. Phil Maydon goes to the Rangers as well. They added a little bit more to the pen. Adrian Hauser for Curtis Mead was also like, what are the Rays doing? I never know. But Hauser has been very consistent this year. They did trade Caballero to a division rival, the Yankees, who need some defensive help. They really do. Bailey Falter got traded from the Royals, or to the Royals from the Pittsburgh Pirates. I mentioned Castro got traded to the Chicago Cubs. Alex Call to the LA Dodgers as well. And I think we've hit on every single trade at a very active and fun deadline. Actually, James Outman and Brock Stewart wasn't in that ESPN grade either, which was interesting. Brock Stewart returns to the Dodgers. Never really was a long-term spot for Outman. And I was surprised they didn't end up trading away Dalton Rushing, maybe in a bigger trade. So that is gonna be it for me. Hope you guys did enjoy those trade deadline grades this year, and kind of my thoughts. I kind of gave a grade as well throughout those, or just trades that I liked, trades that I didn't like, or just thought they were a little bit confusing. If you did enjoy it, I'd appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button for MLB content throughout the second half of the season. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.